that spark happens and you say something, which is one of the reasons I say I'm an igniter, because I ignite that fire within you. I set the spark. And once the spark happens, you realize you're the flame, right? You're the flame. You can actually expand and realize I can do me. I can be me. I'm confident in myself. And by having these tools to flush out all the noise, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to be afraid to be me. And it's really, really cool when you see that happen in somebody. And I'm a big cheerleader.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about.
Yes.
Your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Redman.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Hitting the brand voice runway today is Claudia Wyatt. Claudia is a magnetic writer, and that is not like magnetic in the sense of that's her magic trick, that she's a writer and her writing, but her writing sticks. She's a contagious, enthusiastic writer and speaker and inspiring leader. So the superlatives you'll understand as soon as she starts speaking. And she is a certified confidence, cognitive behavior, and life purpose coach. Claudia's mission is to empower and inspire people to believe in themselves through imagination, confidence, and self-care. And I am so happy to have Claudia on Brand Voice Runway today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Hersh. You're amazing. We're going to have a great chat. We're going to fire everybody up. They're going to be inspired. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Now, if people are wondering, how can there be so much energy in one podcast or one room, we should also tell them that not only is it in one podcast, but the energy exists in the same state. We are in the same state, which would be no big deal if we were in California or New York or Illinois, but we are in fact in the state of Iowa. I am in Iowa City and Claudia is in Davenport. So we're both global presences that happen to have roots in a local or in a smaller town environment. And we'll talk about that too. And I know that a lot of listeners from the demographics are coming from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and not every place is a big city. And a lot of big business comes from small cities. And it's interesting to talk to people about that and what that means in the world. But Claudia, tell the audience, if you would, a little bit about what you do and why.
Well, I have been in the wellness and leadership space for over 20 years, and I've worked with many people. And I started reading faces at a very young age and deciding, okay, people are holding back and they're not telling you everything. You know, not every part of the story is really everyone's truth. And finding that there is so much wisdom and so much pain and so much knowledge in the real story. And that's when I started coaching teams. And while doing that, I found the people behind the numbers, right? There's a real person behind there. It's not just, this person is this role or this department or, they make this much money. It's an actual person who was doing the job. And by going in and finding what actually made that person tick and creating a zone of space where they could be vulnerable, they could let themselves out, allowed me to also do the same. Because I went through a very long period of time where, you get this idea behind you of this is the manager role and who you're supposed to be, and you can't show anything and you're just all the job. But there's a person within me as well. And when I went through a tough time, I call it my dark period, where I kind of lost myself and I couldn't figure out who I was and what I was doing and what I was meant for, but I knew something was coming. And in that moment, I went through a transition for myself of a transformation into the person I wanted to be. And going through those hard, dark moments are where you really find yourself. That's where you really find what you're made of. And even though it was one of the toughest moments I've ever been through in my life, I say it was one of the most grateful moments because it got me where I am now. And in that moment, I realized I never wanted anyone else to go through something like that alone. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to start doing this in my own company and empowering people to believe in themselves and to let themselves show up as them for them on their terms, and giving them space and tools to be themselves authentically and show what they're made of and live their dreams. Because so many of us feel like this is it. We're in this box. This is who we're going to be. And, you know, it's boring, or I don't love it, but it'll be fine. It's the best I can do. It is not the best you can do. That is not all that's in you. And I'm here to show you that.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's not only well said and well expressed. It is really where that passion comes from. Because while you were speaking, I was thinking, you know, we've heard this before, that after the age of 7, we're no longer free. We're no longer in society, in the way that we're raised, the education and the expectations that we have of ourselves and our children, and, you know, all of that, that by the age of 7, we give up who we really are, most of us. Then we look at the people who are living out as their true selves, as the outliers, instead of living in a world where we're just full of individuals. Imagine what that might have been like. We don't know, but imagine what that could be like if people were free to be whatever they want. Now, that doesn't mean that someone could pursue one thing and have the same things that they would have if they pursued something else. The results are going to be different, but the level of self-love that could exist, and let's be honest, self-dissatisfaction is really at the root of all negativity, hatred, prejudice, bias. You know, it comes from a level of dissatisfaction with oneself. You're never going to meet the happiest person in the world who just hates segments of the population. That never happens. So anyway, I think that being brimming with confidence is so integral. Now, once you started working in this area, what happened? What did you see happen with this idea?
It was an interesting turn of events because I could see it before it was coming, right? When you're working with people, you see the light bulb, you see the wheels spinning, they're not making the connection yet.
Yeah.
But when that spark happens and you say something, which is one of the reasons I say I'm an igniter, because I ignite that fire within you. I set the spark. And once the spark happens, you realize you're the flame, right? You're the flame. You can actually expand and realize I can do me. I can be me. I'm confident in myself. And by having these tools to flush out all the noise, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to be afraid to be me. And it's really, really cool when you see that happen in somebody. And I'm a big cheerleader. I celebrate everybody. I'm all about celebrating people. And when they notice that they have come alive, then they realize all the things that were on top of them that were putting out that flame, right? That were flushing it out and going, wow, I can let go of this guilt. I can let go of this judgment. I can let go of all the expectations that are being put upon me. But I also now see what I have allowed. You know, when you're in a room with somebody and you're having a conversation and you're really excited to share, and then somebody just cuts you off at the knees and they're like not interested in what you're having to say, most of us will retreat at that point. We'll go inward, and not in a good way, and say, well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I'm just going to be quiet. But when that spark is lit, you go, you know what? I'm going to do what I'm here to do anyway, whether you like it or not. Just because you don't want to hear it doesn't mean somebody else doesn't want to. Doesn't mean somebody else doesn't need to. And you stand up for yourself. And I call that taking your power back.
Yeah. And that's another integral part of the process of rewiring your mindset. Now, there are a lot of coaches out there. There are a lot of people who work in the life coach and business, executive coaching space. where do you feel your niche is in that, in terms of that?
I really do love working with individual people. It takes one person to make a change, right? So the more people I can work with in that aspect, the bigger it gets. But I do see a transition into corporate space since I have worked with teams for years. And I've seen so much toxicity and in leadership, leaders who are in positions that don't necessarily belong there, leadership that's in positions that they were given because they're good at their job, but they don't even know how to do it. And I call it dictatorship style of leadership is over. Like that is over. So companies that are still following in this line are missing the mark and they're losing their people, but yet they have no idea why. So there's another aspect of the direction I'm actually going to be dabbling in as well.
So is Claudia, is that as a consultant to corporate entities?
Absolutely.
That would bring you in to rectify some of these things?
There's so much going on in the workplace right now with just a lot of confusion, and some of the younger generation that's in there. I have worked with many, and I've noticed they're just different. They're different in how they're coming up in their careers and how they see and what they value. And therefore, the shift needs to happen where everybody is working together toward the mission and restoring that culture and that confidence, because a lot of the younger people do not have it. They have had so much anxiety and depression and scarcity mindset that, all of that imposter syndrome is so clouded over them that they can't actually see to do their jobs.
Yeah, this is one thing that I've noticed is even in very well-meaning organizations where they are trying to spend time on creating a new culture because there isn't an existing culture that fits. It seems the corporate world or the organizational world, it doesn't have to be a corporation. It can be a nonprofit. It can be a small business, but anywhere where you have people working together to, as you say, fulfill a common mission, there seems to be this confusion. It really is confusion. And especially young people they come out of college or in some cases out of grad school, but they're coming through a pandemic where whatever their experience was the last 3 years, 4 years, it wasn't what it was expected to be. It didn't leave them with a feeling of security and stability and purpose. And as much as we, people who are a little older, like, that have been in the business world a long time, we kind of look at younger people and think, oh, they feel entitled. They seem to be entitled, or they don't know how to work hard or whatever. In a way, those same young people are looking to us to guide them to their next place. They're not coming in and saying, I'm going to dismantle this organization and rebuild it from they're like, well, why don't you guys tell us what this is supposed to be and what our mission is supposed to be? And if we don't know anything, any of us, that's okay. That's okay too, because we have to figure out where we belong. And I think this is kind of also for a little bit from the outside, because a lot of my clients have these companies. I personally don't in my own consultancy, because I'm very small, in that side, in terms of staff. But I have a lot of clients who have bigger companies, and I think in some cases they've done a really good job where they've constantly groomed younger people to come into a very, very well-established culture. But tell me what you think about where people's heads are at these days in terms of corporate, in terms of mission, purpose, that kind of thing.
It's all about alignment. And it's not just about, hey, this is my mission, these are my pillars, this is my vision, this is what we do here, this is the culture. It's about the action behind it. Because anybody can say, this is my culture. But until you actually experience it, is what you're saying meeting up with your action? Because a lot of times that's where the disconnect is happening. Yes, we believe in all these things. We're going to onboard you, and these are all the things, and you're going to love this job, and it's going to be great. And you come in and you're all fired up, and you're like, yeah. And then you get in the company and you're like, this isn't exactly what you said was going to be going on here? You've got disgruntled employees, and you've got, absent leadership, and, nobody knows what they're doing, and everybody's all, flustered all the time. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a little more unorganized, maybe more toxic than I was being led on. And the key is to finding out, is this because you don't know how to fix this problem, or are you completely unaware that this is actually happening? Because a lot of times the leadership thinks this is all great. And the key behind that is your people aren't telling you what's going on.
Right.
They are completely silent because they don't feel they have a voice.
Right. The disconnect. And that's something I come up against with the work that I do in brand voice, is that a lot of times the people who are integral to the, let's call it, for lack of a better word, the machine or the system that is the company, are not getting or communicating back the same messages that are being put out to the world about the company. And that alignment is not there. So
Telephone game all over again.
What?
The telephone game all over again.
Yeah, telephone. Yeah. So let's shift a little bit to talking about, well, still your kind of avatar, your ideal client or range of clients, could be a corporation or individuals. You love working with individuals, and then how you reach them. How are you branding yourself, putting your voice out there so that you can reach the people you're needing to connect with?
Well, that's kind of an interesting part of the story. So I wasn't even anywhere near social media 2 years ago. Like before the pandemic, no, I had nothing to do with that. And during the pandemic, when I was figuring all of this stuff out, as I like to say, that's when I started jumping in and realizing there was good to be had. There was a, put on my cape and be my superhero self and start giving my voice to people. And I marketed myself through being very visible, showing up again as me. And, people know me because I'm all over the internet, usually in my red power suit, because that's what I do. So there's my branding right there, also my brand colors. And I started speaking on all of these things I'm talking about and showing people, this is how you can be heard. This is how you can use your voice for good. You have these words that come out of your mouth on a regular basis. Leave a legacy behind you, make them count. And regardless of the likes and the follows and all of those things, somebody needed to hear what you had to say, whether it be spoken or in writing, because I write as well for magazines and articles for things as well, to get my story as well as my voice and my ideas out there. And that's how people then found me. When I'm doing shows like yours that they're watching, they reach out and they'll say, I really felt that really meant something to me. Are you coaching people? And that's when I said, yes, I do that.
Yes, I am. Well, I guess I am. Yeah. Now you've been singled out, in the last couple of years, the world's rising high women leaders making a difference this year. One of the 10 most admired women leaders to follow in 2022. So you're clearly on the radar of people. How do you calibrate your voice depending on the platforms that you're speaking on? You might be speaking at an event, giving a keynote. You might be speaking in a small room of, CEOs, or you might be on social media doing your introductions and meeting people and just being a force of nature on there. Yeah. So how do you keep your voice consistent?
The key is, number one, I know who I am and I know what I have to say. I know what I bring to the table, right? So I'm going to show up like this, no matter where I am, but I'm going to do my research, right? I'm going to learn more about them, their companies, the people, what their struggles are. I throw out a lot of research questions a lot in my social media just to ask people, what your pain points are right now. And it's usually very similar and consistent. I will also make sure that I'm connecting with people. And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm not just coming to talk to myself. Like, I'm not out here to hear myself talk and think that I'm the greatest thing in the whole world and everybody just needs to hear me. I want to connect with your story, because our stories are how we relate to each other. And I'm looking for that connection, whether it's in an audience, whether it's, one-on-one, whether it's a networking event. I'm going to ask about you and we're going to talk and we're going to get to know each other. And that's how I connect. And people go, you know what? And then they, of course, the energy of me
Yeah.
and my level of excitement for all things, everything. They're like, you know what? You would be really good to talk to our people. And I go, absolutely.
What are some of the challenges in just growing this enterprise of yours, reaching more people? What is the number one challenge you're facing?
Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? That's probably the number one challenge. You know, you're
Yeah.
always learning, which I love. I'm a huge fan of constantly learning and growing. In the beginning, I could say tech was my biggest nemesis. That was not my jam. But through trial and error and failing forward, I figured a lot of things out, which I mean, I celebrate myself too. And I was proud of that. I'm like, okay, this, I can do this. Yes, I can. You know, you're connecting with people who have been in the world for a long time, and everybody has different facets of what's going on with them and what they're doing, and just being on the same page with people, you know, really listening and understanding. Finding those people sometimes can be a challenge, but I've been very fortunate. Most of them have found me by what I've been doing. So I would say, you know, always just widening the nets is probably the biggest challenge, just getting in more places.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when my youngest daughter asked me today, she had a dentist appointment. And so we were waiting for a few minutes, and I'm on my phone, and she can tell I'm doing something for work. And she says, "Is your job easy?" And I said, you know, sometimes it's easy. You know, I said, sometimes. And she said, "What jobs are easy? What are the easiest jobs?" And I said, well, if you really love it, if you're really enjoying it, then it's easy. And no job will have everything about it that's easy. And some things will be frustrating, but the easy doesn't mean you just sit there all day. That could actually be really hard to sit in it.
Really boring.
It could be really boring. And I was like, you know, but if you enjoy what you're doing, you know, then it's easy. And I think that's kind of how your reputation and your presence has grown, because you're doing something that you feel really, really secure in. And that's how you can give people confidence. If you had, you know, and confidence is one of the, like, it's amazing to me, the more people I interview and talk to, how either there's an abundance of it and it's clearly behind their success, or there's a little journey they had to take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because everybody I'm talking to has gotten to a certain place and they're going somewhere next.
Mm-hmm.
And to get there, the confidence journey, I would say, has been integral for them. Either they went through a lot of trauma and they had a lot of people telling them they weren't valuable. We all have stuff, and it just comes up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't know when it's going to come up.
No, we don't. I agree with that. You know, a lot of people will be like, well, I just don't have confidence. Every single person has confidence. Everybody is good at something, right? You know, I don't care if it's tying your shoes, you are good at something. You just need more information. You just need to learn a little bit more. Every time I'm learning a new skill, yeah, I'm not going to be great at it the first time I try it. Absolutely not. But I'm going to keep going. It's those action steps that are involved with confidence that get you there. Trial and error, gathering more information, reaching out to people who have been there, who can help you along that journey, has been pivotal for me, because it just keeps making things work better. Now, is there something in me that's a part of me that has it? And yes, it's there. And it was something that I didn't even realize I had. I was actually working with a team member who was struggling, you know, a lot of emotional stress, a lot of mindset issues. And I was working with this girl to, you know, achieve what she was trying to do in her career, but there was just too much in the way. So I'm like, okay, we're going to put this down, because we can't even focus on this right now. We need to focus on you. And I started going through things that she should be doing, some exercises and some questions to be asking herself, and just giving her support, and knowing that she was supported was huge. And at one point she stopped and she kind of looked at me funny. And what at me like that? And she's like, because I've never met anybody as confident as you, Claudia. And I was like, huh, there it is. That's what I'm supposed to do. I was waiting for the sign, because I knew something was coming, and I knew I was going to do something, you know, great. I knew this 5 years before it happened. I just didn't know what it was. And I was waiting for something to drop in my lap and go, this is what you need. Because I have a lot of things I'm interested in and a lot of things I love to do. But there was something very, very important that I needed to figure out. And she gave it to me. And I will never forget her for that, because in that moment of me doing my thing with her, myself also got a gift in that moment.
Mhm.
And I was like, thank you. And I go, thank you.
Yep.
I will take that. And now I will help other people do the same. Here we go.
Perfect. Well, I want to kind of bring this to a close with a thought about scope and purpose and where we go with our lives, because we talked about this a little bit in another conversation we had a week or so ago. We were saying, that we had been, I lived in New York and Miami and LA, and I'm currently here in what is a relatively small, college town, and people often associate success with being in a bigger, more populous place. What are your thoughts on where you are versus where you are?
I got you. When I left this area, because I went to Minneapolis, I was there for a few years, and I was also in Iowa City at one point, and I never thought I'd come back, right? 19 years old, 18 years old. And I was like, I'm out of here. This place doesn't, deserve me, whatever, gumshoe I had. And I was on my way. And when I returned, I hadn't planned on staying. But as a grown person who has been through life, whether it be, family members who've passed away and, people being sick and you being too far away to be there to help them, divorce, all the things, building a career, I realized there's so much value in coming home. I'm surrounded by people I love that I can be there for in minutes if I'm needed, they're needed. We can do all these wonderful things together. There's zero traffic here, which is the greatest thing of all time for anybody who's ever sat in traffic in their entire life. And it's a growing area, but I have a different appreciation for it because I left and I lived in a bigger city, which I loved and enjoyed. There was a lot of fun going on there. But now that coming home feeling, I can be successful anywhere I am, but there's a different feeling when you are home.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yes.